Hello, everyone. Welcome to Personnel Time with Kim K. I am Kim K. I want to thank you all for logging in and taking a look at this video. I wanted to give you all some information about a new labor law or employment law that has been passed or signed into law by President Biden. And this video is not going to be long, but I did want to kind of bring it to the forefront so that employers are aware and employees are aware of some of the things happening in legislation regarding sexual misconduct and things like that. Thank you all for tuning in. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and hit that notification button to be notified when I post new videos and updates about things that are happening that may affect you as an employer. But I wanted to get into this new law that President Biden signed into law last week. Speak Up, Speak Out. The act is called the Speak Out Act. And first, I want to start off by saying I'm not an attorney. And so, as always, if you're an HR professional and you're listening to this video, you definitely want to get the legal advice from your respective attorneys. I'm not an attorney. This is not legal advice. But I do want to provide you all with an update with some things that are going on that can greatly impact employers and employees, because this is a channel dedicated to human resources. Our employees are our most important asset in any organization. So things that affect them, I want to bring that to the forefront so that everyone's aware, especially small businesses who may not have a full HR department. This channel is dedicated for you all to help keep you up to date on things that are happening in legislation. So although I'm not an attorney, I have been in HR for almost 15 years. And my specific expertise is in employee relations. And so I have some insight on employment matters and labor laws. We stay up to date in employee relations on different legislation that has passed that may affect employers as it relates to their employees. So anyways, let's get into it. The Speak Out Act. The law firm Spencer and Fane law firm published an article last week about this new Speak Out Act that was signed into law last week by President Biden. And shout out to Spencer and Fane. They always send me good articles highlighting the latest developments in employment law. So definitely check out their website. You can log in, or you don't even have to log in. You can go to the website and look at their publications because they constantly post updates on different aspects of the law. They specialize in an array of law. One of their divisions is employment law. So they definitely post good content. So check it out if you have a chance. I've put the link in the bio that I'm referencing, for this recording. So I put the link in the bio if you want to go ahead and take a look at it and read the full thing. But I just want to highlight some points in this Speak Out Act that could affect you as an employer. Most large organizations who have HR departments or human resource departments, they do work closely with their legal departments. So we're constantly getting these updates, and I'm constantly trying to stay abreast of these things. And I wanted to bring that to you all. So back to this Speak Out law. This article was published by Spencer and Fane last week. And the article says, and this is a quote directly from the article. Again, it's linked in my bio, so you can go and read the full article. But specifically from this publication, quote says, this law declares that pre-dispute non-disclosure and non-disparagement clauses in employment contracts or severance agreements or settlement agreements are unenforceable with respect to claims or allegations of sexual assault or sexual harassment. The act will only apply to non-disclosure and non-disparagement clauses signed before a dispute arises. So it doesn't preclude employers from entering into a settlement agreement or a severance agreement with a party that includes a non-disclosure or includes non-disclosure language after the alleged sexual misconduct. And so just to be clear, this is only relevant to allegations of sexual misconduct. And so basically what that means is a lot of some of the private corporations, when they hire, either higher level leaders or, leaders in certain management roles, they do, have them sign contracts and things like that. And there may be a non-disparage disclosure or non-disclosure agreement in there as it relates to any employment disagreements or employment allegations or things like that that may cause the company to have to cut ties or sever ties with an employee. And so a lot of companies have this in their employee handbooks. They have it in employment in their contracts that they give to employees about this non-disparagement or non-disclosure of misconduct and things like that. So what this law is basically saying is, for example, if I'm hired at, a large company, let's say, I don't know, Dr. Pepper, Snapple, I don't know if they're called, but say I'm hired there and, as an employee, I sign and agree to confidentiality. And that confidentiality agreement, there's some non-disclosure, non-disparagement clauses in that agreement that says, if I ever separate from the organization due to alleged misconduct by another employee, sexual harassment, things like that, I'm not to speak of those things. So what this is saying is, if I sign that when I'm hired and then something happens, say 2 years down the line, I allege that someone sexually harasses me, that document that I signed before this alleged sexual misconduct happened is basically null and void. So companies can't hold an employee hand to the fire, feet to the fire with that particular agreement that they signed when they first got hired on. Now, that's not to say that if alleged misconduct arises and, the company comes to some sort of severance agreement that the employee is going to separate, and maybe whoever I allege sexually harassed me is going to separate. We do these severance agreements or settlement agreements, and we both agree not to discuss what happened with these allegations, not to talk badly about the company or each other. That's something that we can do at the time of the alleged misconduct, but it would have to be in a new kind of settlement agreement. It wouldn't fall under that agreement that I signed when I first was hired. Hopefully that makes sense, guys. Tried to explain that as clearly as I can, but let me know if it doesn't. I can definitely expound on that. So in the article, it talks about how it doesn't preclude employers from entering into settlement agreements that include non-disclosure language after the alleged misconduct. So that's kind of alleged sexual misconduct. So that's kind of what I just discussed with you all. A lot of these private companies, they have, and even, some public companies, they have in their contracts, kind of broad non-disclosure statements in their contracts. And so before this law was passed, alleged misconduct, something like that, could probably be covered under those broad non-disclosure statements that employees enter into when they are hired with the organization. However, with this new law, those kind of broad statements in these contract agreements are not going to hold if some sort of alleged sexual misconduct arises after I've been employed with the company for a period of time. Now, there's some positives and some negatives to this that I wanted to talk about and bring to you all's attention. Over the last probably maybe 4 or 5 years, maybe even longer than that, there has been a push, a metoo movement, where, young ladies, mostly young ladies, but there are some men who have experienced, sexual harassment, sexual misconduct at the hands of maybe higher level leaders or their supervisors or things like that. And they didn't feel comfortable sharing that information for fear of being retaliated against or having their careers stifled because they made an outcry. And so what this Speak Out law is saying, or Speak Out Act is saying, is that, if this happens to me, now companies can't just kind of silence you with a settlement agreement or this non-disclosure clause that I may have signed when I first was hired, not expecting to be sexually harassed in the workplace. And so what this Speak Out Act is saying is now I, as a victim or alleged victim, can speak out and say, hey, this person, this high level leader or this manager sexually harassed me. The company did nothing but give me a severance package. And they can speak out about their alleged or about the alleged perpetrator. Vice versa, the person who's being accused can also speak out about the alleged victim. So it's kind of a two-way street here, to where previously non-disclosure, non-disparagement clauses in employment contracts would cover the company and shield, or not shield, but preclude or not allow the two parties to speak out about each other if they separate and there's some severance package. Sorry. Now, what the company could do is draft a separate settlement agreement and have both parties agree to these terms and have them both sign it, that neither one of them can speak out about the allegations. But if the victim doesn't want to be quiet and they want to speak out about what happened, now employers are not really forced to hold that in or not speak about it. So in one way, that's a good thing, because it is important to bring these things to light when, if there's proven evidence that an employee was sexually harassed and the company didn't do what they were supposed to do to protect that employee. This does give the victim some leverage to speak out about those things, which is great. But with the passage of this new act, there are some potential issues that I see with this law. The first one being is how this particular Speak Out Act has elevated sexual misconduct or harassment over other forms of mistreatment or harassment. And it kind of creates inequities. People are harassed in the workplace for more things outside of sexual harassment. People are harassed due to their race, their religion, things like that. And so now you kind of have this law that has been passed that has elevated sexual misconduct over these other protected kind of classes. So, for example, if I'm being racially discriminated against or harassed due to my race, or if I'm being harassed, say I am a part of the Muslim community and I'm being harassed due to my Muslim faith, my beliefs, maybe I wear, head garb and things like that, and I'm being harassed due to my religious beliefs. Well, the non-disclosure or non-disparagement contract that I signed during the hiring process would cover the employer and would kind of prevent me from speaking out about, those ways that I have been harassed due to my religion or due to my race. Whereas with this law, if I'm harassed due, sexual misconduct, or I'm sexually harassed, now I can speak out and against the perpetrator. Whereas with these other ones, so you kind of have this elevation of sexual misconduct. And, in HR, we don't want to disregard any type of harassment or misconduct, sexual harassment, racial harassment, religious harassment or misconduct. We don't want to elevate one over the other because they're all important. So there's some potential inequities with this law, with kind of elevating one type of harassment over for one reason, or harassment for one reason over harassment for another reason. So that's one of the issues I see in this particular law. The second one is the law talks about allegations. And this is going to be for an attorney to interpret. I'm not an attorney. Again, this is not legal advice, but just reading this off of face value, I could potentially allege that sexual misconduct occurred. Maybe it turns out it wasn't misconduct. Maybe I was in a mutually beneficial or mutually agreed upon relationship with a manager or supervisor who's higher than me and could have the potential to advance my career, and I decided to, you know, have an intimate relationship with this person. But then maybe, because I didn't get the promotion or he didn't give me what he promised me, I can, just shoot out allegations. And in order for the company to avoid negative press, things like that, they may do a severance package with me. And I can go out, and if they don't draft a second settlement or a new kind of settlement agreement with me, severance agreement with me to kind of put a gag order to say, hey, you can't discuss these allegations, things like that with the outside public, then I can go out and just make these claims in public and disparage this alleged perpetrator. And he may not necessarily be a perpetrator. He may not be guilty. So that was one of the things, one of the words that caught my attention was allegations, because allegation is exactly what it says, an allegation. It is not, if it hasn't been investigated, it is not facts, until there's an investigation, until there's concrete evidence to show and prove that there was alleged sexual misconduct. I'm a little concerned about the law being so broad as to say I can make these outcries just on an allegation, and it may not have been investigated, things like that, and I can just kind of disparage this alleged perpetrator, ruin this person's reputation without there even being proven facts. So I looked up the definition of allegation. It is a claim or assertion that someone has done something illegal or wrong, typically one made without proof. And that's the key word, without, or that's the key phrase, made without proof. So until there is proof, all it is an allegation. I cannot terminate an employee based on an allegation. I need it investigated, and I need some factual findings to conclude that yes, this allegation is true and this indeed did happen, or no, we could not find pertinent facts or sufficient facts to confirm that this allegation actually happened. And I think one of the things I thought about with this particular law was the Boston Celtics coach. I cannot pronounce his name, so I'm not even going to try and slaughter it. I'm not trying to say it. I don't want to slaughter it. But, he's had this consensual relationship with allegedly one of the another employee's wife. And the key word was a consensual relationship. She was married allegedly. Of course, he was engaged to Nia Long. So they agreed to have this relationship, you all. And so and this is without knowing the facts, but in my mind, that's a mutual consensual relationship, which they both agreed. And this is what the media has been reporting, that it was a consensual relationship. Now, and I've seen this play out over and over and over again. If you look at some of my previous videos, I kind of touched on this. I have seen this play out so many times where a female will get involved with a male who may be married or have a significant other. And when the relationship falls apart, then all these frivolous allegations come flying out because, of course, she's emotional. She's mad. She thought he was going to leave his wife for her, and he's been married to his wife for 20 years. He's not going anywhere. So, things like that. And women will make false allegations. And I've even seen men do this in the LGBT community. We've had several cases where there's been this kind of love triangle, and someone gets mad, and then all of a sudden all these allegations come out. And it's not until we get into the investigation where we start pulling receipts, and the person who's accusing this person of sexual harassment, well, the alleged perpetrator, he has receipts. He's pulling out text messages like, no, this lady's harassing me. I just didn't want to say anything. I have the text messages where she's calling me, she's texting me, she's showing up at my house. Like, this happens, you all. And so that's why it's so important when you're in a position like in human resources, and or you're in a investigative unit where you're conducting investigation. You have to really be cognizant and really be conscious of being neutral in these situations. You cannot make assumptions because you're affecting potentially affecting a person's career, their life. So you have to be really cognizant of that and come in as a neutral party and look at the facts with an unbiased lens. You can't look at the facts of, or look at the facts and say, well, because she's a woman, well, women don't lie. Women do lie. And I've seen it happen several times, and men lie too. So that's why it's so important as investigators or working in the HR field to come in with a neutral lens and investigate the case based off of the facts and come to a conclusion based off of the facts. And this is where I had a problem with this Speak Out Act, because the way it's written in this publication that I read, and I haven't read the full law, laws are really long, so I haven't read that yet. But when they say allegation, this is a problem for me. Now, I get it if there's been an investigation and proven facts and a substantiated investigation to say, hey, yes, this person sexually harassed her. We have the facts of the case and concluded that these allegations are true. Then you have actual facts, and I wouldn't have a problem with a person speaking out about that. But there's not an investigation on the books with facts to show that, yes, this actually happened. These were unwanted advances or unwanted touches or so any kind of sexual misconduct that we have proven to be facts. I'm okay with the victim speaking out. But just based off of allegation, I have a real problem with that, because it's going to impact men the most, and unfortunately, those are the ones who, are accused probably more often than women are. I'm not saying that men aren't sexually harassed. I think men just don't report it as much as women do. And it may not happen as much as it does with, men maybe sexually harassing women. I don't know. I have to look at the numbers on that, but I would venture to say that men just don't report it as much. It's kind of like physical abuse. People don't think men get physically abused. They do. They just don't report it. Oh man, something happened with my lighting, you all. Sorry about that. Hope the video still looks okay. But those are kind of my two issues with this this new law, this new act that President Biden signed into law last week. How will this affect employers? I don't know yet. It's fairly new. There are some states that currently have similar laws in place, California being one. I think it was New York or New Jersey being another one, kind of your more liberal states. But how is this going to affect the accuser? How will it affect the person being accused? We don't know how this is going to play out until we see some cases actually play out. And I'm going to imagine it may be some higher level something or case that may play out, something that draws more public attention to where it'll force us to kind of really get into this law and kind of try this law to see if it really works. Attorneys are really crafty about interpreting the law and arguing the law based on how they want the jury to vote or a judge to vote. And so, or to rule. So, that's how you kind of build case law. You use case law to interpret the law, basically. I mean, legislators can write this whole law, but you may have a crafty attorney who can argue the law and create what they call case law to interpret the law. That makes sense, you all. So anyway, let me know your thoughts. Take a look at the article, read through it, and let me know what you think. I've given you my opinion. Of course, I'm always open to see or hear other sides of the story. Like I said, it's a great law. I think people, victims, true victims, should be able to speak out about being harassed. And however, I do think there needs to be some protection on those who are falsely accused. And where there is no evidence, I don't believe that an alleged victim should be able to speak out and disparage that alleged perpetrator if there's no factual evidence, if there hasn't been an investigation conducted, if there is not a substantiated investigation. I do not agree with um, this law, which makes non disparagement or non disclosure clauses in an employee's contract or in an employer's handbook void, because I just think it could create some problems for those who may be falsely accused. So, of course, laws can be revised and things like that. Like once a case plays out, there may be some revisions that come up, but on face value, those are kind of some of the issues that I see. And like I said, it's new, so we'll have to see how it plays out in the courts. So let me know what you all think. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate everyone. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit the subscribe button. Follow me on the Locals app. That's a new app that I was not familiar with, but I am becoming familiar with. So follow me on the Locals app. Join my community on the Locals app. It is called Employee Matters with Kim K. There's my Cash App information. If you all enjoy the content and want to support, definitely shoot me a Cash App. Much appreciated as we build the channel. As you can see, my lighting went off. So still trying to figure this whole YouTube thing out and trying to figure out, how this lighting stuff works and the background thing. So bear with me, but hopefully you all enjoy the content and I will see you again soon.